Well, I have officially reached the point in the project where the hard stuff is behind me. Transferring the insulation from the old shed to this new roof is going to be a little bit hard, but it won't be back-breaking hard. Really, all that I have left to do is to get the insulation installed and the new roof put on. And then this shed is weather tight. And it looks like I managed to get this project done for the most part without too many conflicts with weather. It looks like we've got a couple of solid days this week where the rain's coming in, but I'll definitely have the roof dried in before this happens. The last thing that I'll do is cover the OSB on the sides and the back of the shed with some plastic, then I'll seal it off, and then again it's basically weatherproof. I'm going to take some of the 1x12 rough sawn lumber that I've always got around and cut it down and turn it into the fascia boards that will go over the front of these 2x6s. The fascia boards will be about an inch longer than the 2x6s, so it should hide and protect that OSB on the bottom side just a little bit. So I kind of have this idea that anything that I haul in here and use for building materials, I'm going to keep here and reuse it wherever I can, even insulation. So I've taken as much of the Roxol insulation out of the old shed, and I'm trying to reuse every piece of insulation that I used in that shed in the roof and the walls of the new underground shed. The one thing that Roxol insulation is most definitely reusable. It's just not fun to move that insulation around because no matter how you spin it, you're going to get a little bit itchy. I spent many years crawling through attics and crawling under houses, rolling in insulation, all in the name of fixing someone's plumbing. I hate it. There's no way to spin it. It's miserable stuff, but it serves its purpose. And by taking that Roxol insulation out of the old shed and repurposing it in the roof of the underground water tank shed, It's eliminating the need for any materials to go to the dump, number one, but it's also reusing something that's completely reusable, even though it isn't fun to take it from the old shed to the new shed. And by the way, insulation has not gotten any cheaper in the last couple of years, so that's the least I could do. So the way that I framed this up, I didn't nail the outside edge on the top or the bottom. And wherever there was a seam with the OSB, I have to now go inside and nail off just that seam. What I did with the roof is I tried to kind of prefab and minimize how much nailing I was going to have to do from the underside on top of those tanks. So I would build the pieces, flip them over, and then connect it to the roof. And now I need to go back and nail the edges of the OSB, and then I should be good to go. So I'm gonna get that done, then the process of insulating the roof begins. But the reason that I did it this way is just to ensure that no mice get into the roof and tear all that insulation out of there. So by securing these OSB sheets to the existing studs and then flipping it over, all that I really have to do is nail off the seams. And I've really enjoyed this new battery-powered Milwaukee nail gun, but I must say, once the battery gets a little bit low, it sometimes doesn't drive the nails in properly. But I want to get this underside nailed off where there's no way anything can get up into the roof and do any damage. Okay, now really all that I have left to do is I need to take all of the insulation from the old shed, that Roxol insulation that's good stuff, and I'm gonna reuse it in the roof. So I'm gonna take what I can out of the shed and literally pack it into every bay in this roof, and then I'm gonna put the OSB on the roof, and then I can put the roof on. In spite of the fact that the Roxol insulation isn't the funnest to work with, it's some of the best stuff out there. It doesn't burn. It doesn't mold. It insulates very well. In our applications, we've used this insulation everywhere from the house, the shop, and now the roof of the underground water tank shed. It's sustainably made. I believe it's made from the slag, which is a leftover process when metal is made. So I like this stuff, but so do the mice. So I've got to make sure that once this roof is finished, it is not accessible to the small rodents. In the early days, I considered all the different types of insulation. I looked really hard at the spray foam, and we considered this, but I had some concerns with the off-gassing and the potential smells, so we went with Roxol instead. But one of the big factors with the Roxul insulation versus the spray foam insulation is the simple fact that the Roxul insulation cannot burn. If anything, it causes fires to smolder instead of burning because it limits oxygen. And we've had that conversation a number of times if the house should ever catch on fire. That with the Roxul, that at a minimum we have enough time to get out of the house. And I believe we would. One of the greatest gifts that our lifestyle gives us is the simple opportunity to exercise my brain and think about the best ways I can do things. The downside is I get to do this in front of you. As you've seen, I've gone back and fixed things as I've spent more time thinking about them, recognizing that there was need for improvement. But ultimately, this lifestyle is truly a gift because for someone like me that constantly thinks about what needs to be done, what projects could improve our position in life, these are the things that I get to think about almost all day, every day. And after a few years of thinking about this water tank shed, the end result is basically what I thought it would be. Now, only time will tell. We get to see if my ideas and my theories are going to hold up to Mother Nature and the abuse that this little water tank shed is going to take with the snow in the winters, with the rain, and the simple ground movement that comes with the territory. Okay, I am short probably 2 sheets of OSB, and then I need to put the fascia board on it and the drip edge, and then I can dry the roof in. I tried to use the worst insulation that I had in the roof, and the little bit of insulation that's left I'll use in the little pony walls. So I'll run down and pick up some OSB first thing and get back up here and see if we can't get this dried in. Later tomorrow afternoon, I think there's a pretty good rainstorm scheduled to come in, so I'm hoping I get it dried in before that happens. I've got about 36 hours before our first storm rolls through. So I need to get this completely dried in and if possible, even finished. And I need some materials. I need to go get the drip edge. I need to pick up the tin. And I need to pick up a couple more sheets of OSB. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I have enough OSB scrap to cover the little pony wall and the side walls. But before I do that, I've got to insulate first. So I'm taking the upper bats out of the old shed and using those upper bats for this stuff because it seems that the higher the insulation was in that shed, the better the condition is naturally. So I'm using those pieces that are still in really good condition to fill the back, pony wall, then the sides. Then I'm going to spray foam any gaps that I can see on the inside, any light that I can see on the inside. And then the inside's insulated and safe and good to go. We are probably a week and a half away from temperatures below freezing at night, and I just have to get it done. So getting every single hole that I can find sealed with that spray foam, and then the front door. That's the other big issue, is the front door. So step one, get the back pony wall insulated. Once all of the insulation has been removed from the old shed and reinstalled in the new roof and the walls of the underground water tank shed, I will go over everything with a few cans of spray foam, and I'll do my best to seal the thing up tight. Once this is all done and the insulation is all finished up, I will likely take some of that black plastic again and cover any of the OSB that's still exposed, and then seal it with my favorite zip tape, just to make this little shed as watertight as I can make it. This whole thing has been a giant learning opportunity, and truthfully I'm surprised that the old shed held up as well as it did. Using only 2x4s and then insulating it with the appropriate Roxol insulation, the old shed still managed to keep our water tank and the pipes from freezing even on the coldest days of the year. And there's always a week or two where we're down below zero and it stays below zero. So now with the new water tank shed, I shouldn't have any concerns at all about freezing as well. I'm going to run over to the sawmill this week and pick up a whole bunch more of that 1x12 rough sawn lumber. And I'm going to use some of that lumber to make some board and batten siding for the new underground water tank shed. But as it's cooling off, I've got to get some sort of a door made for this thing that's going to be thick enough to do its job. Before I run and get materials, I'm going to hit the everywhere I can see light inside that shed with spray foam, so it can be setting up before I get back with the materials. So. Once I get all the siding in place, I will take a rake and go around the new shed and level things out a little bit more. And then again, I'm going to throw some 5-seed pasture mix all around this thing. And when the snow melts in the springtime, that new seed should have a good jump on the year. And maybe this time next year, we got a hillside right here covered in grass. I'm going to use the same drip edge and the same tin that I used on the house and the shop. And once the board and bat and siding is done, this thing should tie right into everything else pretty well. But the truth is, not too many people are going to see this place, because from the house you can't see it. But regardless, when it is seen, it'll look good. This is the 1x12s that I ripped down to about 8 inches that I'm using for the fascia board. And what I'm basically doing is just trying to hide the OSB underneath a little bit. And I left enough of a lip on the fascia board that if I wanted to come back and cover that OSB with something, I could do it. OSB doesn't typically do the best when it's left out in the open, so I'll probably have to cover the underside of the eaves with something at some point down the road. But for this winter, it'll have to do. On our next video, the roof will be finished on the underground shed, and my oldest son and I do our best to start taking his wreck truck and turning it into our new plow truck. We'll see you in a few days. Window, window.